In March of 1974, Susan Turner was hired by Capitol Records in Atlanta, Georgia, as a clerk typist for their country division. In September of that year, the labels Frank Jones and Bill Williams asked her to move to Nashville as their promotion secretary. From 1978 to 1980, she worked for RCA's Joe Galante and Dave Wheeler, moving to disc mastering in 1980. In 1985, she joined O'Neill Hageman as Carrie O'Neill's assistant. In 1987, Susan became office manager and publicity coordinator for artist management firm Maress, Nannis & P. In 1991, Stan Maress and Chip P. dissolved the company, and she joined Bruce Schindler Promotions. In January of 1992, the company became Schindler Turner Promotions. When Bruce left to join DreamWorks Records, she hired Jody Van Allen and Jim Melito, and they became Turner and Associates, working with such artists as Garth Brooks, Shania Twain, Brooks and Dunn, Tim McGraw, Keith Urban, and many, many more. For 14 years, they were one of the top 3 Billboard and R&R independent promotion companies, working product for 99% of the major labels, with 253 #1 singles, 125 of which were multiple week #1s to their credit. In December 2004, Susan closed Turner and Associates and moved to the St. George Island area of Florida, where she owned resort property. She worked with Prudential Resort Realty and was on the board of Franklin County's Humane Society. In 2006, she began a show in Apalachicola, Florida, at the historical Dixie Theater called the Dixie Does Nashville, bringing in numerous songwriters to do 4 Writers in the Round shows a year. In December 2008, she returned to Nashville, and she has worked for Just for Kids LLC in administration and loves working with little children. So, let's welcome Susan Turner to the stage. I don't see where it says that. Susan.
I don't know how many of you women out there who have been here for a long time, but we have the girly girls. And a lot of us have been here for a long time. And I wish to God I had known Lula Naff. I don't want to be that old, but I wish I had known Lula Naff. This has been an incredible evening. Source thanks all of you for allowing me this opportunity. I'm honored to be in the company of all these amazing women, and there are a lot of amazing women in this room. In March of 1974, I answered an ad in the newspaper for a clerk typist for Capitol Records in Atlanta. I didn't know very much about country music, but I knew who Linda Ronstadt was. I knew who Anne Murray was and Glenn Campbell. And I'd seen Hee Haw maybe a few times. It took me about 2 weeks, and I was totally, madly in love with the music. The music was moving and simple and beautiful, and I thought it had all been written about me and my life. I worked with Joe Dieters. Capitol had 3 regionals to cover 300 reporting stations. We sat face to face, desk to desk. I don't think either one of us had a clue what a mentor was, but he was mine. He wanted all of his stations covered. There weren't any cell phones or computers, and he let me start calling some of them. Capitol was the only label who had their country division outside of Nashville. In May, they announced that they were moving that division to Nashville. I flew here in June and worked my very first fanfare right here in this building. Katie Gillen was right across the way with whatever label, I can't remember that she was then, but we had a lot of good time. By the way, if you were watching the slideshow, those white jeans with all the names embroidered all over them took my mother and I 3 months to embroider. It was every capital artist known to man on them. But it got the flight held in Atlanta because the ones that know me well know I'm late, and they held the plane. When I got here, I lost my place. Okay. I admit I didn't miss the flight. In September, Frank Jones and Bill Williams asked me to move to Nashville. I packed up my 6-year-old son, he's not 6 anymore, and I moved here in October, smack in the middle of the CMA week. And it was a week. At least 3 parties per label. We didn't know anybody, and I never looked back. December of that year, Kay Smith came to work with Frank Jones, and I had found my very best friend. There's a story behind that. I bounced around at Tavern on the Row from a Judd's #1 party to Jack Lehemeyer's birthday party, and the AC didn't work. Everyone on the row at that point in time knew she was my very best friend. We've been friends for 42 years, and I am certain that she saved my neck on more than one occasion, or 2 or 10. I don't know how I would have survived here without her. She is one of the finest human beings I have ever known, but I have the first claim as very best friend. Fast forward to 1991, and Moresnana's Pay was closing their doors. For the first time in years, I searched my soul and knew I wanted somehow to get back to the music that I loved. I had taken jobs because I had a 6-year-old. I needed to put a roof over his head and clothes on his back and food. The stars lined up, and Carolyn Parks and Terry Lays, who had Tandem Promotions, needed someone to fill in temporarily, and Carolyn's husband, Bruce Schindler, had just recently started his own independent promotion company. They thought it would be a great idea for the 2 of us to get together, and that was April of 1991. I will forever owe a debt of gratitude to Bruce for taking a chance on me. We rocked for over 6 years. In '97, when he went back to a record label, I knew I wanted to continue on. Enter Jody Van Allen. Bruce and I had hired Jody out of radio from Columbus, Georgia, in January of '96, and he moved and he hit the ground running. I asked Jody to stay, and thankfully he did. I also hired Jim Melito away from another promotion company. I knew and liked him and convinced him he needed to be a part of the Turner & Associates team. Jody still does independent promotion and owns Cafe Nashville, a nationally syndicated radio show. Jim worked for Dreamcatcher and Warner Brothers and is now the national promotion director for Broken Bow Records. We were a team, and I could never have continued to achieve the excess and success without them. I think I did good. Through the ups and downs for 13 years, my friend and accountant, Keisha Smith, has worked really hard to keep me on friendly terms with the IRS. She made me pay attention even when I didn't want to, and I thank her from the bottom of my heart. My family is here tonight. There's a handful of you that know Mick, and it is very true that my heart walks around outside my body. He's my anchor. He once told me when he was in his 20s that I was the balloon and he was holding. I said I wasn't going to do this. The string to keep me from floating away. It's true, and it's been true for 49 years this coming Friday. A day later. My niece Terry and my nephew-in-law Jason are two of my angels. Boy, have they helped me in countless ways, in up and down, and I'll always be grateful for them. Then there's my baby brother, Jim. He will always be my champion. He has the biggest heart and has gone to great lengths to see me happy. I am so glad when I gave him to the oil man that he took him around, knocked on the front door, and gave him back to my mom. I stayed in this business for 30 years. I got to be part of it when it was on the ground, when it was raw and real and beautiful. I see you, Betty. Everyone, regardless of what label you were with, rooted for and helped each other. There was no division. We celebrated each other's success. The thing I loved the most was the song and their creators. Some of my most magical experiences were at the Bluebird, where I saw Don Schlitz and Vince Gill and Tony Arata and Jim Lauderdale. Don was signed to Capitol Records, and he put out The Gambler. I was so disappointed when it didn't make it. I don't think Don was disappointed. The things I loved are the reason I stayed. I don't think I can describe to the younger people what it's like to have been a part of that. But my analogy, if anybody that knows me well knows I love to fly fish. Country music was kind of like being in a high-fat valley in Colorado and taking pictures of the mountains. The pictures can't convey the magnitude. You had to be there, and I am so lucky and very glad I was. And I didn't know Tom Schuyler was going to be here. But to quote Tom Schuyler, God bless the boys who made the noise on 16th Avenue. And again, thank you, and I wish all of you love and light.